So tonight we are going to do it a little bit different than we usually do it. Rather than expound a passage and get into deep Bible study, we're just going to look at one verse and kind of the whole Bible. And we're going to look at the news that's going on, because there's been a lot of news in the last couple of weeks. And so I've entitled this Progress, or is the World Being Set Up? Well, you know the answer to that question. In Isaiah 5, verse 20, a passage that you know well, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Well, so nobody would accept darkness as if it were light. Nobody would accept something as sweet if they taste that it's bitter. Who would do that? That's insane. And yet there's the Bible verse, because people were doing it then and they're doing it now. In fact, one of the things that's been very obvious is if the Democrats make an accusation against Trump or somebody, they're guilty of what they're making the accusation about. And the mindless half of the country just follows after. But I believe this has significant implications for the end times, for our days, because there's going to be great deception. So I put a couple of graphics to you, and you tell me which one is true. I asked ChatGTP to give me a picture of an evil entity overlooking the Middle East. And this is what I got. That's pretty good. Or I asked ChatGTP to give me Israel in the protective hands of God. Actually, ChatGTP wouldn't do it. When it came to this request, ChatGPT said, I've run into trouble doing that.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? Just a coincidence. So I had to go to Gemini. There are several AIs out there that are pretty good, and this is what Gemini gave. And it looks pretty good, but do you notice anything just absolutely wrong? A couple of things. One, Israel has some dark spots. Gaza, the occupied West Bank. So it's interesting that AI put that in there about the occupation of Israel. That's not an accident. That's the way the algorithm's programmed. But there's something else that's wrong about this as well. And this highlights what I think is one of the grievous problems with AI. Did you notice the flag? It's all wrong. Now, it got it over there on the right. There's the Star of David, so it knows what the Star of David is. And, I mean, every time the AI would look up in some database about the flag of Israel, the Star of David's there in the middle of it, but it got that wrong. I don't know what to make of that other than artificial, yeah. Intelligence, I'm not quite so sure. So there's that. Which is it? Is it the dark, sinister figure, or is it the hand of God? Hands of God. Well, the answer is both. The evil one is watching over the Middle East and doing his worst. But Israel, and we're going to talk about that tonight, Israel is absolutely, now they think they're so smart. They think they're so capable, and they think their military and technology is so good. That's not why they're protected. It's the hands of God, and they don't even get it. So we'll talk about that tonight. First, a little bit of news, which all tonight's going to be news, but here's some fresh news. University of Columbia. They're allowing them to start a new newspaper called Columbia Intifada. Now, if you don't know it, Intifada means every Jew must die. Kill every Jew you can find. And that's the name of their newspaper. And they're allowing it. So has Columbia learned anything from what happened this last summer? Not a thing. And then, if you had any ideas that the Catholic Church was going to have anything good about it at all, or the Pope was anything good at all, we've got this. Here's the nativity scene at the Vatican. You see it, right? You see the Palestinian scarf holding the baby Jesus. Wow. So this picture tells me not only is evil rampant at the Vatican like it always has been, but this Pope is not the Pope who's going to be the false prophet. I'm convinced the Pope is going to be the false prophet, but not this Pope. What about this picture would tell you not this Pope? He's in a wheelchair. His days are numbered. There's going to come along another one. We don't know the timing of these things. I heard Tom Hughes and Haller talking tonight. You know, Haller made the illustration, pretty good illustration. When you see headlights, you know a car's coming at you. When you see the taillights, you know it's a car, but you don't always know whether a thing is coming at you. You know, if you're standing and you see what looks to be a headlight, maybe that's a car coming at you. Maybe you're standing in a train tunnel and that's a train that's about to run you over. You don't know what you're looking at, actually. And those are the days, you know, kind of something. And that's where we are. We can see some of these things shaping up, and we kind of know some things. Some are more certain than others, but we don't know everything. And then LifeSite News. Any of you know anything about LifeSite News? It's a Catholic news organization that many conservatives have looked to for life news, that is anti-abortion, pro-life news, and they have over the years presented a lot of news that other agencies don't. But they've taken a serious turn for the worst. So, as we read this about their change, you know, at the border, what they call the NGOs. Do you know what an NGO is? A non-government organization. Non-NGO, non-government. These are organizations that the government feeds them the money, and they do the work that the government would do. The Catholic Church are the premier ones who are taking the money for all of these illegals coming in and placing them someplace. Now just let that sink in, put it in the back of your mind. If you thought the Catholic Church was going to be anything good, or the Pope was going to be anything good, it's not good. It is sinister. So, Harbinger's Daily article, conservative news group embraces hardcore anti-Semitism following the October 7th massacre. So one of the co-founders of this LifeSite News, Steve Jalcevic, last week he said, prior to the October 7th, listen carefully, prior to the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, most of us knew little about the tiny but militarily and politically powerful nation of Israel. This is not starting out good. We tended to marvel how it managed to keep winning its battles against seemingly overwhelming forces from neighboring Muslim nations and terrorists from within and outside its border. It was amazing how skillful the Israelis have been in fighting wars and developing the most advanced modern weaponry and intelligence gathering systems. Most of us were almost totally unaware of the great suffering and violence that most innocent indigenous Muslims, did you love that? Indigenous Muslims, and even some Christians and Orthodox religious Jews have endured since 1948. And it only goes worse from here. I encourage you to go to Harbinger's Daily and read this whole article. So this is a Catholic news agency, and they're throwing Israel under the bus as hard as they can. And it debunks a lot of things that you may hear in the news and you need to know the actual truth about it. This article does a pretty good job of that. So the anti-Semitism isn't waning, it's growing. And it's going to grow. I don't want it to. I very much don't want it to. But prophetically, we know it is going to. And there's going to be another Holocaust worse than the one under Hitler. It's almost hard to take it in. And then this is interesting. Bible sales up 22% this year. And the headline really is, at first-time purchasers influencing the rise. So it's not you and I replacing a Bible. This is first-time people buying a Bible. This is really, I think it's a harbinger, maybe that's not the right word to use, of people that are beginning to spiritually ask some questions and wonder about some things. What do you think?
Well, don't you think, I mean, you walk through these days and I realize that most of us are as conservative as you can possibly get around here. But the general run-of-the-mill people out here that are not.
Oh, yeah.
They're going through things and they have absolutely no understanding or foundation. And they're questioning, probably for the first time in their lives, as to what exactly is going on. And why is this happening the way it's happening? There has to be a reason.
You're absolutely right. And so you say no foundation. I would argue that they have an evil foundation that has been placed there. It's even worse than no foundation. If you want a picture of what we're talking about here, look at Elon Musk. He, for the first time in his life, has begun to actually think about things. And he's coming to conservative conclusions. He's already done so on transgenderism and other things. He's seeing, see, when Trump began to run for president, Elon Musk wasn't on board with that. He was on board, there's something wrong with liberalism, something wrong with Democrats. He was there. But as he has watched this unfold, he has come over to see, for the first time, he's thinking about these things and coming to reasonable. He is a thinking liberal who's going to become a conservative when it's all said and done. And by the way, if you want an interesting study of the current news, the things that Elon Musk's organization has done with the rockets, they launched, what was it? It was a record. In 40 hours, they launched 10 rockets. Well, how do you do that? They did. In fact, all of the things that NASA says you can't do, he's been doing. He just did something with what's called Gronk. Gronk is his version of AI. I haven't found it very useful yet. I've played around with it. They want some money first, and I'm not really all that thrilled about giving them any money until I find out whether it'll be worth it. But he has developed, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but he's developed, okay, let me see. So a server is a group of computers that are tied together. And it was thought up until this point, everybody said you can only tie together, I think it was 10,000 of these computers you could think of them. And that's where everybody was. That's where Google, they said that's the limit, that's the maximum. He just came out with 30,000. His people found a way to connect. So every one of these computers has got to be connected in a couple of ways. And this is just mind-blowing that it could even work. And he's got it to work, which means he has pushed the envelope off the edge of the table. So what I'm telling you is Elon Musk is a genius, And he's thinking about these things that you and I have been thinking about, abortion and transgenderism and all that. For the first time, he's thinking about that. So I really applaud him for being a thinking liberal. I don't know where he's going to end up. I'm not saying he's a Christian. That's where it'll end up if he keeps thinking. If he keeps pursuing the truth, that's where he will end up. So that's very fascinating to watch that happen. And, who knows? Maybe, you tell me what you think. Maybe he's been able to do some of these things because God's hand's on him. Whether he's a Christian or not, anything to do with it. Whether Trump's a Christian or not, God's hand's on him. Right? So maybe God's enabling Elon to be successful in these ways to position. And the proverb says that the Lord turns the heart of the king whichever way he will. Which tells me that all these people in power, God moves them where he wants to move them. So, what do you think? I like this. Guys reporting to Trump. They say Pete Hegseth drinks. Right? And Trump responds, send him a case of whatever General Grant drank. Don't you love it? I hate alcohol as much as the next guy, but there's the truth. And then this one, I love this one. News. President Biden pledged to give $1 billion to Africa. Did you see that? He went to Africa just last week. In other news, North Carolina will change its name to Africa. This is funny and it's sad. What if we gave $1 billion for the rebuilding before we took care of another country? Well, I think Elon and the other guy, I think they're fixing to really upset the apple cart. The stuff they're going to, huh?
They don't want it.
They what?
They don't want it. They don't want them to come in.
No, oh no. In fact, across the board, I've told you this, but I want to underscore it and bold it. The realignment in the world that's taking place just because of the election is unlike anything in my lifetime. Any election in my lifetime. The disruption factor that Trump is bringing before he's even in office. And like you say, they don't want these two guys. And you'll find how deep and stinking the swamp really is. Because the swamp, Democrats and Republicans, are going to oppose it. And if I'm right, God is going to enable Trump to just steamroll over the top of them. I don't know what that'll look like, but it's going to be fun to watch. So, the Middle East. Here are the players. We have the Red Sea down here that Moses came across. Little old Israel right here. Just 1/7 the size of Missouri. And the players around them, they're biblical. You've got Iraq and Iran and Syria. We're going to talk about all these. Jordan, who hates them, but they have an agreement with them. Down here, little Gaza causing so much pain and suffering. In Syria, we'll talk a lot about that. And Turkey and Russia. These are all the big name players in the Bible. Just for reference point, here is the general area that Abraham was promised of God that he would possess, that his descendants would possess. This is all they have right now. It's going to be fun to watch them get the whole thing. I don't know when or how that's going to look, but it's going to be fun to watch. So I've shown you this before. This is the Psalm 83, what is called the inner circle. The Psalm 83 is thought by many. I see it and maybe it's true, that Psalm 83 is a war. And I have actually, in the last few months, begun to wonder if we're watching that play out right now. We thought there'd be a declaration of war, bombs going forth, and there'd be a war, that kind of a thing. But maybe that's not the way it's going to play out. Maybe it's Gaza attacking Israel, Israel dealing with the Philistines, Gaza. And then up here, here's Tyre to the north, Hezbollah, Hamas, Hezbollah. And we really need to pray for the Christians in Syria. I'm not Assyria, in Syria. What Assad did to the Christians and others in Syria is medieval. Right now, they're just now going to the prisons that he set up, and through Christians and Jews and others. And it's like torture chambers. It's medieval. So Assad is gone. That's a good thing, right? This is the outer circle, another war, Ezekiel 37:38, that the Bible talks about. And this has been all of my ministry. This has been where prophecy people have been talking about. That's what they've been focused on. Because that is the big dog, the Armageddon, as it is called. And you've got all these players. Turkey just keeps popping up. Turkey has been funding a lot of things in Syria. Turkey is a real bad player, but they're a NATO ally. Politics makes strange bedfellows, they say. So let's talk a little bit about these players. Israel has dealt with Hamas down here in Philistia or Gaza. They're not done yet, but it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. All the while waiting, knowing that they were going to have to take care of Hezbollah up in Lebanon. And they've done it. And it was estimated, people did estimates on the number of Israelis who would be killed in this process, and it was in like 20,000. It's nowhere near it. Not even close. Not even close. I forget the number. It was not even a couple of thousand. Israel thinks they're so clever. Israel thinks they're so technologically advanced. Israel needs to repent and realize that they're in the hands of God, and that's the only reason they're protected. So Hezbollah has been dealt with. Syria, what happened, maybe you don't know this, as soon as the rebels came in and Assad, helped by Israel, I'm trying to think of the number, I just heard it, he took $130 billion, $135 billion and gave it to Russia as he left. Now I ask you a question. Would your bank have any problem transferring $135 billion? How do you do a thing like that? Electronically. There was no dollars or anything else to transfer. It was done electronically. At any rate, he fled. And in every case, and you watch the Middle East, when one of these tyrants falls, chaos ensues, worse things happen. It's not good. Libya, perfect example. But Syria is going to be another example. What did Israel do just as soon as the rebels took power? They came in when there was nobody to stop them. And they absolutely obliterated. I had no idea until I got to diving into what they did. Not only They sank their navy, the entire navy, which wasn't that big, but they sunk their entire navy, destroyed their entire air force, Syria's air force, destroyed munitions and plants like that, and some really bad stuff that needed to be taken care of. They acted immediately. It was almost startling how quickly that they acted. Now, the rebels that have taken over, the reason why we know this is going to be bad, because the rebel leader and the rebels that have taken over are a partnership of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Can anything come good out of a partnership like this? It's going to be very bad. Very bad. When we thought we had ISIS licked, we thought they were so bad even the Muslim world's rejecting. No, they're partners with Al-Qaeda now. And Al-Qaeda was bad enough on their own to begin with. And the rebel leader, the only thing I've heard him say, I didn't understand. There was somebody who interpreted. And he said two things. One, we don't hate America. We're not against America. Two, we're coming for Jerusalem. Now, I would interpret that to mean America is so big and bad right now, we can't take them on, but we always hate Israel. We'll always hate Israel. We'll always say awful, terrible things about Israel because we hate Israel. And I don't have any doubt that their intent is to come for Jerusalem, if they can. If they weren't in the protective hands of God, do you suppose they could? Oh, sure. Yeah, they could. So, as I have said, the reorganization and restructuring going on in the world is the greatest I've seen in my lifetime of any election. The successes that Israel has been having in all three of these places, Gaza, to the north, and now Syria, it's miraculous. I don't think you can even explain it by military and technology. It would have had a lot more bloodshed, and yet Israel just does it. Now, I think there's a lot to be said for Israel's ingenuity, and Israel as a nation, they're all that. But all that is not why they've been protected. And they've been protected in a way beyond all that. So this reshuffling of things, how much money did we spend in the war in Iraq? I don't even know. I don't even know. It's off the charts. What did it get us? A lot of hatred for America. And I was in favor of the war at the beginning, and I have come to see that it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. Now, you can have your opinion if you want to. It was absolutely the wrong thing to do. The Bush administration was only one half step better than the one before it and after it. Bush, and his daddy especially, were globalists. Did you notice what Bush did with the election this time? Well, his daughters voted for the gal. And who'd he stump for? Nobody. Who'd he vote for? And we don't know. My gut tells me that he would choke before he would vote for Trump. So you're left with those options. He probably wrote his own name in there. So this reshuffling that's going on, I believe we may be, I don't know, but we may be observing this Psalm 83 war going on. Slowly, not quickly like I would have imagined a war, but slowly rolling out. Maybe. We do have to watch for the larger outer ring, Turkey, Russia, Iran, Iraq. That war is going to end up in Armageddon. That war is going to end up so bad that if it were not for the hand of God, Israel would be overrun. So it is interesting to watch the reshuffling and the reorganization of these things. So there's more I don't know than I do know, but I can tell you there's either a car coming at me or a train coming at me. I'm not sure which it is. I don't know all the details, but I can tell you these details are in the Bible. And in the most general terms, we can tell you Psalm 83 is a thing. Ezekiel 37:38 is a thing. They're at different times. And the case of Ezekiel, I believe that they are dwelling in Israel in peace, which tells me that the Antichrist is going to come and make a peace deal with them, and they're going to feel safe. And that's when the Armageddon type war, the Ezekiel 37:38 war, is going to come. And I believe that's out in the future. We could be watching the Psalm 83 war playing out right now. I don't know. It could be a precursor. You know, prophecy is pattern. If you don't know that, that's a real thing in the Bible. God does pattern after pattern after pattern until he finally makes the fulfillment. We see this in the feasts, but we see it in other prophecies as well. So we may be seeing a bit of a pattern playing out that in the future, yet there will be an actual Psalm 83 war. Big time, like we would think of a war. I don't know. But I can tell you it is getting interestinger and interestinger. Have you got any questions about any of this? I hope over the years that me teaching God's Word has been valuable to you. One of the things that I have been encouraged to do by people is to do a prophecy podcast. And I'm thinking that it could be broader than that. Nobody's doing that. I mean, on a smaller scale, you've got Tom Hughes and you've got Jan Mark, and you got all that going on, but little workers like me, that there's no preachers. There are no preachers in the area talking about it. So I've been thinking about maybe really trying to do a good podcast on prophecy, as well as the feasts of Israel. So how many of you would be up for cooking the meal? Now, we may just theoretically talk about that. Well, this is what I had for you tonight. There's 4 ways that the Antichrist is going to bring about. I want to zero in finally at the 4th one. The Antichrist is going to bring deception. We've talked a lot about that because it's a big deal. Number 1, there will be false miracles and signs. You could just simply say miracles and signs, but there will be a falseness about them as well. The Antichrist is going to have power to deceive many that way. And blasphemy against God is going to be a part of that deception. If you can imagine the church taken out, nobody but people who are not saved left behind, the Antichrist is going to blaspheme God in so many different ways. And the people that are, Revelation calls them earth dwellers, they that dwell upon the earth, are going to wander after the beast, who's going to be saying things against the Most High. And then third, persecution of believers. There will be a number of people, evidently from what the Bible says, who did not get saved, but will be saved because of what happens as a result of the rapture and the tribulation time. And that persecution, so he will be saying things like, we're not going back. You know, kind of like Kamala was saying, we're not going back. So these people who are believing in God, they have to be eliminated. Some way, somehow, that's going to play out. The 4th one, though, is kind of the one that I'm really looking for. The global peace and prosperity, the peace deal. And this is why I got kind of nervous when Trump was president before, and he offered that peace deal, two things about that were very bad. One, him offering a peace deal. But he even said at the time, I'm going to offer this peace deal, knowing that the Palestinians are going to reject it like they always do. So it was a tool, a chess piece he was using. The other one, though, was that a part of that deal was to divide up the land even more. Now, if you want to make God mad, just talk about dividing up the land. That was very unsettling to me. As much as I could see, wow, nobody in my lifetime has been able to bring the Arabians and all of these players together for a peace deal. I was in awe at that, and yet scared at the same time of it. Was it, I was afraid, the peace deal? Well, it turned out it wasn't, but maybe it's going to be revived. And I've said before, Trump may wind up being the best thing ever, and he may wind up being the absolute worst thing ever. Because we do know where things are going to go. If God's hand has been upon him and got him elected, it has been so that America has one more chance to repent. A second chance. The first one was that too, but we didn't pay any attention to that. So we began with Isaiah 5:20. Could there be an inversion of things? Could things actually be that turned upside down? Well, evidently God says so. And that was true back in that day, but will that be true yet again? Big time. The Antichrist is going to deceive in such a way, and that's the reason why Jesus said more than once, be careful, don't be deceived.